a charter member of the Hot Springs Civitan Club. We are a nonpartisan civic organization, and our motto is Builders of Good Citizenship. My original plan was to have this presentation done for one of our club meetings, but then decided it really deserved a much larger audience. So I contacted the library about collaborating with us and opening it up to the public. They are live streaming it on their Facebook page and their YouTube channel, so folks can watch it at home or the recording over the next few weeks. I very much appreciate you being here tonight, and also those who may be watching from home. So now let's get on with the reason why we're all really here, to learn about the 4 issues on the General Election Ballot. Alison Crane will be sharing with us information developed by the University of Arkansas Public Policy Center. Ms. Crane is a family and consumer science agent for the Garland County Cooperative Extension Service, part of the University of Arkansas System, Division of Agriculture. She's a graduate of Ouachita Baptist University. She and her family have lived in Garland County for 10 years. Alison describes her job as an extension agent as taking relevant, research-based information from the university level to the county residents to benefit our daily lives. Please join me in welcoming Alison Crane.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me. There is a lot to think about when you're dealing with the ballot issues, and being a good citizen, coming here and finding out all the information that you can. It's a great thing that you are doing and taking the time out of your daily schedule. And I do appreciate all those of you who are on live with us. And so let's just kind of talk about this. The Cooperative Extension Service has been a neutral source of information about the Arkansas ballot issues since the Public Policy Center was created in 2004. We're not here to tell you how to vote, but we are here to tell you neutral information on the issues. We face the challenge of cutting through the election noise, all the ads, all the comments, issues, things that happen with that. And there are many important statewide offices on the ballot this year. So many people don't necessarily realize what on these ballot issues that they even exist. Then there's also a national group that has started providing information online about Arkansas ballot issues, but they offer a static website. Whereas with Extension, we are trying to get someone in every county who can provide information relevant to our people. And again, if there's something that I don't know, I know the people to ask. So like again, when at the end, if we have questions that I don't know the answer, I can find out. You know, it's important because Arkansas has one of the lowest voter turnout rates in the country. One organization even said that we were at the bottom of the list when it came to the number of eligible adults voting. You know, we want people to have the information that they need to be able to decide about these issues in an informed manner. And ultimately, we're changing things across the board in Arkansas. So you want to know what is happening. So let's get started here. Let's look at the ballot issues. Election day is November 8th this year, and at the end of your ballot, you will see 4 proposed constitutional amendments. Now, before I go further, if you haven't already picked one up, I would recommend that you pick up one of our voter guides or save it to your phone. We do have it digital, and you can find it at the website there at uaex.org. uada.edu/ballot. The voter guide includes the ballot title, as you will see it on election day, information about what the proposal would do, answers to some general questions, and what supporters and opponents say about the issue, and then what a for or against vote means. Because I don't know if you've ever gone in and found out later that you thought you were voting for something, but it turned out you were voting against it, depending on how you voted. And so again, I like to know ahead of time what happens with my vote. And as usual, there's a lot of times, especially with the citizen-initiated ballots, a lot of times there's court challenges, things like that. And all 4 of our issues will be voted on and the votes count for this year's election. So let's look at issue number 1 here. Now, issue number 1 comes from the legislature. It proposes giving state senators and representatives the same authority as the governor to convene themselves for a special session of the legislature. Under this proposal, the 2 leaders of the General Assembly, the Speaker of the House, and the President of the Senate would have to jointly decide to call a special session of the legislature. Or legislatures could petition to go into special session. They would need a 2/3 or more of the House and Senate senators to be able to go that route. Now let's look at this here. Our legislative sessions that we have currently in Arkansas. We have the regular session, which is odd numbered years. The laws and the constitutional amendments happen during those odd numbered years. Then on the even numbered years, fiscal session happens, and that mostly focuses on our state budget and what happens with the money and revenue that the state has gained. And then there's special sessions. Now, a special session is very short, and it's usually meant to just address a very specific topic or just a few topics. Now, let's look. Oh, I think I'm bumping it. No. All right, so here, the government. It looks really different from this angle. It's kind of funny. It throws me off. All right. So right now, only the governor has the authority to gather lawmakers into special session. The governor can call a special session at any time. The 93rd General Assembly had 3 special sessions over the past year. For example, the governor is the one who sets the agenda for these sessions and that will take place in addition to the regular or fiscal sessions. These sessions are supposed to be short, and they're usually limited to what the governor has put on the agenda. However, legislatures can address or request additional business to be considered in a session that once they've currently dealt with the reason that they were gathered in the first place. But for them to be able to do that, they have to have a 2/3 majority of the members in each chamber before they do address that new business. Now, under issue 1, if issue 1 passes, the House Speaker and Senate President would set the dates of special sessions called by the legislature. Just like they do in regular sessions, legislators would have to create rules for how their special sessions would operate, such as like what deadlines and things that they would operate under. just like they do now in special sessions that are called by the governor, but they'd be able to consider special business or additional business if there's enough votes dealing with that. If approved, this amendment would take effect the day after the election. Now, we know sometimes with the ballot issues, it might be the next year, it might be in the next voting season or whatever, but this one would take effect the day after. Now, on issue number 2, state legislators also referred issue number 2. So this is another one from the legislation. I cannot talk tonight. Legislatures. This is for the voters to decide. This proposed constitutional amendment would increase the percentage of votes required to pass ballot issues such as this in a future statewide election. All right, so we're voting on an issue to determine next time how many votes it takes. Right now, proposed amendments from the legislature and the public, along with the state laws proposed by citizen groups, pass with a simple majority of votes. That means if more people vote for it than against it, the ballot issue passes. Under this proposal, a ballot measure would need support from at least 60% of voters to pass and go into effect. Just to give you an example here of this. All right, now issue 2 would not apply to referendums from citizens on a law that passed in the legislature session, but it would stay at a simple majority. Nor would the percentage of votes required to pass state laws with the legislature change. So that would still be a simple majority. Most laws in the legislature require a simple majority to pass. In our Senate, we have 35 members, and a simple majority is 18 votes. In the 100-member House, it is 51 votes. Appropriations and some tax increase bills need an extraordinary majority of 75%. So you can kind of get an idea of what we're looking at right now, currently, what we have, and how that would change the effect. In the Senate, the extraordinary majority is 27 votes. Bills that would change an initiated act require a 2/3 majority, or 24 votes in the Senate and 67 in the House. So it kind of gives you a little bit of perspective there. All right, all states have a ballot issue process, every state, but Arkansas is one of 15 states that allows citizens to propose constitutional amendments and state laws or veto. Of the 14 other states, 10 of them require a simple majority to pass ballot measures. 2 other states require a simple majority and a certain percentage of the voter turnout. Nevada requires ballot measures to pass in 2 separate elections. So you can see, there's different ways of doing it from different states. Only Colorado has a higher voter approval rate at 55%. Now, if you're looking nationwide at all of the states, Florida is the only place in the country that requires 60% voter approval for constitutional amendments. They have an even higher threshold of 66% for any new tax proposals on the statewide ballot. Over the past 20 years, Arkansas voters have considered 40 proposed constitutional amendments and state laws on the ballot. Now, these have come from the legislature and from citizen groups that petitioned to have their issues on the ballot. Voters approved 30 of these proposals overall, and of those, 18 ballot measures received at least 60% approval. So it kind of gives you a little idea of the math and how that works. Here's a look at the 12 ballot issues that passed, but with less than 60% voter approval. These laws are on the books now, but they wouldn't have been approved under issue 2. So you can kind of see here what it is. And the one that is bold, that is a citizen proposal. The rest were proposed by our state legislature. Now, here are the issues that were approved by less than 60%. Here's some more of them. All right. And again, we have the medical marijuana, the casino gaming, and then the changing term limits. Those, again, were citizens. So here's the rest of them. All right. Now let's look at issue number 3. It's the Religious Freedom Amendment. Legislatures have the ability to refer up to 3 constitutional amendments to voters to decide every election cycle. Issue 3 is the last of the proposals from the legislature. Issue 3 proposes incorporating into the state constitution language that prohibits state and local governments from burdening the practice of religion unless the government shows there is a compelling reason to do so and acts in the least restrictive way. Now, this proposal would give people a legal claim in court or other governmental proceeding to seek relief from the government imposing on their religious freedoms. Now, there's several things with this proposal. The full text of issue 3 defines government as the following here. A branch department, what you can just see here for a second here. Let's pause and look at this. A branch, department, agency, or instrumentality of the state of Arkansas. A political subdivision of the state, including like the county, city, town, or other unit of local government. Anywhere that you might have a place that you would vote for something. An official acting on behalf of the government is government. A person acting under the color of law of the state of Arkansas. That term, the color of law, means in this instance there is an appearance of someone acting on behalf of the state. If an entity was created by an Arkansas governing body or law, it would also fall under the definition of government in this proposal. Now let's look at these terms, because this issue has some undefined terms. There are several terms here, including burden, compelling interest, and person. And ultimately, if someone raises a challenge under issue 3, it will be up to the courts to decide what these terms mean. Looking at laws about religion and government, we have, in addition to the 1st and 14th Amendment, the U.S. Congress passed the Religious Freedom Restoration Act in 1993 to prevent government from burdening religion. Now, the law faced a court challenge, and the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the law applied only to federal laws. After that court decision, states started passing state-level versions of a religious freedom law. Looking nationally, the Constitution of every state in the Union here mentions the freedom of religion. In addition, there are more than 20 states, including those that surround us, that have passed a religious freedom state law and prevent their governments from substantially burdening religion. Only Alabama has a religious freedom amendment in their constitution. Similar to issue 3, Alabama's amendment only refers to burden and doesn't use the more limiting phrase substantial burden. Issue 3 sponsors said they modeled their proposal after Alabama's amendment. Now, Alabama's amendment has not been challenged in court yet, so we don't know, any results or anything like that. But let's look at the differences here. Can I skip a page? That's just not forwarding, that's what it is. All right, so let's look at this. Y'all, this poor little thing, my clicker is on its last leg. So it's either the user or the clicker. We'll blame the clicker.
It's a clicker.
We'll blame the clicker. All right. Now, let's look at the differences now that we're caught together. Just like in other states, Arkansas proposed and passed a religious freedom law. Legislators approved the law in 2015. So when the legislators met in 2021 and decided to refer issue 3 to you on the ballot, some lawmakers asked what was the difference between Act 975 and issue 3. Looking only at the text, the obvious differences are issue 3 doesn't include the word substantial in front of the word burden. So it would be up to the courts to decide how that affects the interpretation of issue 3. Plus, there are no state agencies exempted under issue 3, and Act 975 specifically mentions state and local detention facilities. Finally, and this is the difference mentioned by most sponsors, issue 3 is a constitutional amendment that cannot be changed without another vote of the people. Whereas the state lawmakers can amend or change Act 975 during any legislative session that we have. So that's a big thing right there with it when you're talking about the people who are going for and against. One of the questions we get about this proposal isn't there already a law about religious freedom in America? And there is. The First Amendment saying Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise of religion. And then we have the 14th Amendment to our national constitution, which extended those protections of that First Amendment to state governments, holding them to the same standards as the federal government. Then there's also a federal law that was passed by Congress in 1993. And we mentioned that already. It prohibited government from substantially burdening religion. And initially, this law was thought to apply to the states, but like I said before, it was challenged in court, and the court opinion said it was applicable only on a federal level. Now let's look at issue 4, an Arkansas adult use marijuana amendment. Issue 4 came to us through a citizen initiative process. Responsible Growth Arkansas is the sponsor of this proposal to amend the existing law that allows for medical marijuana. If approved, Issue 4 would allow the state to issue permits to businesses to grow and sell marijuana for recreational purposes. Adults 21 and older could possess, under the state law, up to 1 ounce of recreational marijuana. Issue 4 proposes eliminating all state tax on medical.
Your bullet points. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. In my thing, it's all there. We'll just do them all. All right. Okay. Well, I guess that proved it. It's not the clicker's fault. All right. So issue 4 proposes eliminating all sales tax on medical marijuana and would instead let the state charge a higher sales tax on recreational sales. State legislators would not be able to change this amendment without another vote of the people. Now, there's a lot more detail about this issue in the voter guide, and you can find, there's many pages dedicated to this issue to be able to cover everything. And you can also check our website too. But let's look at this. All right, who could legally grow marijuana in Arkansas? Issue 4 would allow existing medical marijuana cultivators to also grow and sell their marijuana to recreational dispensaries. Now, they are allowed to possess as many plants as they need. The law would allow another 12 licenses to be issued for growing recreational marijuana only. These license holders could then possess only 250 mature plants at a time, so they will have smaller yields than the existing growers. It's kind of like a craft brewery. They would use the lottery system to award the new licenses. Now, let me kind of give a little context for that. Existing facilities right now are called Tier 1 in the proposal. New licenses would be called Tier 2, and they can grow less marijuana than Tier 1. So, issue 4 would allow dispensaries to open to sell recreational marijuana. All right, the issue would allow these dispensaries, medical marijuana license holders would automatically be able to sell recreational marijuana at their second store or their existing dispensaries. They'd also be granted a license to open a second store for pure recreational sales. Now, the state could also award an additional 40 licenses for recreational dispensaries through the lottery system for a total of 120 recreational dispensary licenses. So you can see here how this plays into action. 38 of the 40 original ones, the dispensary licenses, have been issued so far, and there have been no new medical dispensaries. Now they have some requirements. The requirements are 5 miles apart from existing medical marijuana stores. They need to be 1,500 feet from schools, churches, daycares, or facilities for individuals with developmental disabilities. And the cultivation facilities have to be 3,000 feet. Local elections would be held for the retail sales. So in other words, an area could vote whether they wanted to allow it in, like a facility in their town or county. Now, for dispensary store owners, Under this proposal, people could have a financial interest up to 18 recreational dispensaries. Stores would also be able to sell items that are currently prohibited, such as the bongs and rolling papers. Now, again, remember, dispensaries would be able to possess twice as many mature plants under this proposal, 100 rather than just the 50. Now, for the cultivator and dispensary stores too, people who aren't Arkansas residents could now own or have a financial interest in a cultivation facility or a recreational marijuana dispensary. So right now, currently, we have a requirement that they have to be Arkansas residents, but that would allow outside interest to come into that. Also, it would remove and eliminate the background checks for people who own less than 5% interest in one of these businesses. Now, issue 4 amends the state marijuana laws. So in case you were wondering, issue 4 would not allow any other additional businesses to grow or sell medical marijuana. For medical marijuana card holders, they could buy recreational marijuana, and that amount would be in addition to what they are allowed under the medical marijuana program. A big change in this would be eliminating the sales tax consumers and dispensaries pay on buying marijuana for medical purposes. So let's look a little bit at the details with that. All right, finally, issue 4, it would also get this, remove the limit on THC in foods and drinks infused with medical marijuana. Specific advertising restrictions in the law would be replaced with more general requirements to avoid advertising and packaging that would appeal to children. Local governments could not use their zoning laws to prevent cultivators and dispensaries from opening in non-residential facilities. And finally, just like alcohol, there could be local elections on whether to prohibit retail sales of marijuana in the community. Now, current medical marijuana sales and tax revenue. The Arkansas Medical Marijuana Amendment on the ballot from 2016 specified how state sales tax revenues would be distributed to the state agencies that oversee the program. The state's General Revenue Fund and a Vocational and Technical Training Special Revenue Fund are all part of that. Legislators later passed laws changing the distribution of the medical marijuana tax revenues. Currently, here's how it is split up. From the 6.5% sales tax on medical marijuana sales goes to the Arkansas Medical Marijuana Implementation and Operations Fund. I thought my office had a long title. All right, this excluding the tax funds dedicated to roads and state parks. Departments that oversee the medical marijuana program receive tax revenues for administrating the program. This includes Alcoholic Beverage Control Division, the Department of Finance and Administration, and Arkansas Department of Health and Medical Marijuana Commission. Additionally, proceeds from a 4% special privilege tax on medical marijuana sales to dispensaries and to consumers goes into that AMEO fund. Everything beyond operating expenses is directed to the University of Arkansas for Medical Science for its National Cancer Institute Designation Trust Fund. It gets kind of complicated when you think of all those places it goes. According to the Medical Marijuana Commission, more than 70.6 million has been generated through those two taxes since medical marijuana sales started in 2019. Now let's kind of look at these proposed tax rates. So issue 4 would eliminate sales tax on medical marijuana, and in its place, cities, counties, and the state could charge sales tax on recreational marijuana sales at dispensaries. Counties and cities could not charge any additional sales tax or privilege taxes on recreational marijuana, but the state could. Issue 4 also includes a supplemental 10% sales tax on recreational marijuana. Now there is the issue of hemp, and I don't know if there are any growers here in Garland County in particular, but the proposal, issue 6, defines cannabis as cannabis sativa, which would encompass the definition of hemp. And hemp comes from the same plant as marijuana, but it has a lower THC level than marijuana. It's kind of uncertain how that definition would affect the state hemp program. But the state does have a strict licensing program for hemp growers and producers who would then not be able to turn around and sell what they've been growing to marijuana cultivators or the dispensaries. Now let's look at other states for just a moment here. When Arkansas voters approved medical marijuana in 2016, we were the first state in the Southeast to do so. Now there are nearly 40 states allowing some form of medical marijuana sales. When it comes to recreational sales, 19 other states allow recreational marijuana. The amount they allow differs greatly. Just so you'll know, too, just kind of an aside, Missouri, Maryland, North Dakota, and South Dakota are voting this year on recreational marijuana proposals. And Oklahoma and Nebraska voters may see the recreational marijuana sales on their ballot this fall. I think there's being some court challenges for that right now, currently. Now, we've covered a lot today, and I really appreciate everybody being here. And thank you for trying to learn more about the policy decisions that you, the people, will be making in November. You know, please tell your family and friends about our voter guide. And I just want to reference this real quick. And before we open up to questions, again, I don't propose to know all the answers on this, but if it's something that I can't answer, I can get you to the right place. But just for general purposes, when you've got your voter guide here, we've got several things in it that you can find very useful when you're making your decisions. And like I was saying when I first started talking to people, one of the things I like about the voter guide is not only does it go in and it gives you the information, it gives you the official title, what you'll see on the ballot itself, but it also goes in and shares what people are saying about it. The voter guide gives you who also proposed it and who they are, whether they're state legislators or whether they're a citizens initiative. And so, like, for instance, on issue 1, you can look on page 6 and you can see what people are saying about it. And so, like I said, I really like being able to use this guide. For issue 2, you can go to page 12 for it. And then for issue 3, 16. Now, I find it kind of interesting here. If you're looking at issue 4, as compared, issue 1, there was about this much information on what people are saying. Issue 2 got a little bit bigger, and issue 3 had a whole, almost a whole page. Issue 4 has 2 pages dedicated to what people are saying about it, because there's a lot of perspective that, being able to hear what other people are saying and understand that this issue, how it would affect people. So kind of look at that and get an idea as well in the book. It will also answer some of the most commonly asked questions about each issue. And so again, I like that information. Kristen Higgins, and I'll share her information there. Kristen Higgins, she is a program associate in our state office in the Public Policy Center. And let me tell you, she spends months, from the minute it's time to start proposing the ballot issues, she starts following the information and gathering this information to put it into a usable formula or format for us to be able to use. Again, I'm not a legal expert, so being able to have someone else kind of translate some of that helps me, and she does her best to be very conscientious. Now, one of my handouts I have is just a state ballot issues worksheet. That is also, it can be found in your ballot issues book. It's right there at the beginning. So, like, as you're deciding, if you're like me, I can make really good decisions outside of the voting booth. But sometimes when I get in there and I start thinking, now, what was I going to vote on this one? It doesn't look the same. So, especially if they mess up the order by something's not going to be voted on or something like that, that really throws me off. Legally, we can't bring in, promotions and things like that, but you can take this little worksheet with you, just fold it up so that you're not sharing things with other people, but you can have this with you in the voting booth. And so I like that. I also have just a general guide here that tells you, again, what the actual thing will be on the ballots. And then this green handout shares about, just being careful, make sure you're using reputable sources and that you actually read what you share. There's a lot in the news about, misinformation, things like that. And I think a lot of that is shared because we don't thoroughly read what someone's actually saying. I just gave a test to a bunch of people for ServSafe on Tuesday. And one of the things I stressed with them was make sure you read the question and answer what it's actually asking, not what you think. So that's just my little aside on that. So does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Where did, on page 24 of your booklet, Where did this formula come from? Would there be taxes on non-medical marijuana purchases? It says 70% would go to the general fund, 15% would be set aside. It's not in the law. That's being voted on.
Okay, so the question was asking on page 24 in the book, which, by the way, those of you who are live or will listen to the recording later, you can take this, you can go to our website and it will give you the, you can have the ability to go onto our website and download the ballot book here. All right, so, okay, I see what you're asking. She was asking on page 24, it says, would there be taxes on non-medical marijuana purchases? And asking where those percentages came from. And said that, you know, it wasn't listed in what's listed in this. I will say, and I don't know this for sure, or, you know, 100%, with this, what's printed in the book could be a shortened version of the different ones, because some of the issues have a lot more wording to them, and you can go to our website and get the full version. So that's probably where that came from. Because I do know that Kristen has thoroughly researched, so she's not going to put this in here if it's not what's actually planned. Yes.
Alison, if I can add to that, the short thing up here is the popular title. This is not the bill at all.
Right.
That is its actual title. The bill is numerous pages long, so that's why it's not mentioned in there.
Yeah, Kristen goes through and she weeds through the entire legal document on it. So again, that's what she's getting that from, okay?
Follow up on that question on the bottom of 29. It's listed in there that that's where it's to go, but
Yes, it says it's a stipend to law enforcement, but it doesn't give that percentage of 15%.
This is the
directing a portion of
So
such
it must
tax
be in the
for the
bill itself.
stipend, and then the general revenues, and where it's to go, but our legislature is to, and your opening lobbyists.
So what she was saying, for those of you who are on live or will view the recording, if you look on page 28, 29, there is a copy of the ballot title. And so there is some of that listed in there, but not the full detail. This law in particular is pretty complicated. So they, you know, again, to be able to get all those percentages and things, and the details of who gets what and who can have what. So there's a lot more to the law. And again, you can go to our website for that. Yes, ma'am.
You get the Sunday paper and look in it. They have printed the entire text of each of these issues.
Well, that's good to know. So was it this past Sunday that they did
It
that?
will be every Sunday.
Every Sunday. Okay, so for those who are listening on Facebook Live or whatever, then there was a mention from one of our people that said that the issues are published in the Sunday paper from now until voting. Yes, sir.
Does the state legislature have the opportunity and right to change the amount of tax or the distribution of the tax after this is passed, if it's passed?
There was some detail to that they said that they could. I don't know how far they can go with that.
Last sentence. Last sentence on page 29. Now, at the bottom.
Yes,
There can be no change to this law.
Without voter approval.
well, and that's like completely changing, you know. Okay, so what she said here is if you look on the ballot title, let me see if I can get to the beginning of the sentence so I can read it to you, talking about the changes. Well, I'm not seeing the period, but we'll just read this last thing. All right. Talk about your run-on sentences.
They're very good at it.
Okay,
It's just the title, it's probably all technically, not even a sentence.
right, I think it's just all part of it. All right, I was just trying to find the right spot to start reading that. So this is on page 29 of the ballot issue book. And so what the reference was, again, we're talking about changes to the amounts of the tax. So permit cultivation, production, distribution, or sale of cannabis not expressly authorized by law, and in prohibiting legislative amendment, alteration, or repeal of this amendment without voter approval. And I did mention that when we were kind of first starting to cover this issue. That is one thing that it would have to go back to the people to be changed. Again, I can't say 100%. That doesn't mean that some of the percentages of how legislation, like the money dispensing would go to, because it would depend on some of the state entities that are actually distributing it. So there might be some leeway in that, but I couldn't guarantee it, especially when they've said that with this. So this is one, again, you want to know that before you go in and vote for something. You want to know how hard will it be to change something if we find it's not what we thought. And that's also where going in and making sure you're reading what's happening and reading what is, again, all the information you can get without someone who is, I'm for it, so here I'm only going to give you the pros, or I'm against it, I'm only going to give you the negatives. Is there any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Real quick, I have checked your voter registration, going to put up by the Election Commission. You can call up front, make sure you're registered and get a sample ballot. Anybody can get one. I'll put them on the table back there.
Great. Well, and the library has some too in the display that's right at the front. So, yes.
I pulled up the complete text of issue 4 from y'all's website,
Yes.
and it is 11 pages long. So I'm a little surprised the newspaper would be publishing that whole thing every
It
week.
takes about this much room.
In little itty bitty,
It must be
magnifying glass.
Because this is 11 pages of 8.5 by 11.
Yeah,
Right.
that's about right.
Magnifying glass to read with them.
Well, and then that's another thing too. Being able to go online where you can magnify it, because it is small print if it's printed out, because there's so much of it. I mean, even in our book here, you look at that and there is a lot to it. And, again, I had to check through very carefully, trying to even find a place to start reading to make it make sense. So starting at the beginning, when you are in the voter booth, it's really hard to read all of that and make any comprehension of it. So y'all are ahead of the game. Yes, ma'am?
Where can you go to find out what it means if you're not understanding it, because there's so much there?
Well, again, I'm gonna say this book is set out to, again, break it in. If you have a question about something that you read in the book and it still doesn't make sense, well, then you can contact, Kristen Hagens. Like I said, she's got some great background on it, more so than I do. She's the one that teaches us how to be able to do this. This is her program she has developed, and so I am more than happy to defer to her, or you can ask me something, and basically I will be asking Kristen, can you give me some more information? The people in my county need it.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
Good job.
Great, thank you. This is, we just had to plow through all of these issues, and so it can just be kind of, this is this and this is that and stuff. So thank y'all for hanging in there with me, and any listeners who stayed with us live.